All right, we are going to try this again. Good morning, good evening, good night. And if this is the only episode that you are watching, then I truly that meant nothing when we said we're going to try it again. So this is the first time you're watching it. Anyways, welcome to our chapter and verse. I was just commenting on the last video, if it actually was there. I'm not really sure if it was recording or not, but just that it's been a bit of a routine shift getting back into things going here. We got back from Hawaii, and this was a gift from Mom, my sister and husband, and then the two of us went to Hawaii for the very first time, all three of us. Well, Mom had gone one time before with Dad, and so it was kind of like a repeat for her in some ways, and then for us, it was really cool. So some of you are like, oh, suffering in Hawaii. Well, if you know me, I did. If you want to know what it's like for someone like me to go to Hawaii, it's basically the 1% of my DNA that is Egyptian, convincing the 99% of my DNA, which is Irish and Scottish, every single day. Oh, today's going to be the day you don't burn and look like broiled cheese on a pizza. Anyways, so I am having weird things happening on my screen. You know what? I am just going to talk for the next half hour. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't record, well, then my apologies, and I will just have to do this some other time. Anyways, we got to jump into this because we got lots going on. Let's just take a moment. Let's just pray, and then we'll continue on with Acts chapter 13. Okay, God, we want to thank you for your word. We thank you that it speaks to our lives, and ask, Lord, that you would be able to just share your truth to us today. And we just ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Okay, awesome. If anybody wants to let me know that this is running in the comment section, then that just helps me. But I have these flatline marks on my screen, and that's got me very, very nervous. I'm not going to look at it one more time. I am just going to go, unless someone wants to text me and tell me, hey, we are live. I'm not really sure. Okay, so let's take a moment. Let's just jump into oh, Linda, thank you. Thank you, Linda, for letting me know that this is going. I was starting to get a little worried, but let's jump right into Acts chapter 13. And Linda, let me know if the last video is showing too, because I had similar looks. So if that is the case, I apologize for anybody who's jumping back on saying, hey, I thought we had a video going, and then have to go watch the second one. I will erase the first one as soon as I'm done. Okay. We got lots to talk about. Okay, so we are in Acts chapter 13, in the middle of the chapter. We're just going to keep going. Last time when we got together, we were talking about what a follower of Christ should look like. And that's going to kind of carry on a bit, not on purpose, but you're going to see, based on some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, that that's going to kind of show up as well. Okay, so interesting, the very first word that's going to come out of verse 13 is a little bit of a ding, a little bit of a change. Paul, Paul, he's no longer Saul, he's Paul. But it says, Paul and his companions set sail from Phasos and came to Perga from Pamphylia. But John, who's also called John Mark, which will matter in a little bit, left them and went back to Jerusalem. So I'll read that again. Paul and his new companions set sail from Paphos and came to Perga in Pamphylia. But John left them and went back to Jerusalem. Okay, so no shock. I am... Oh, okay, Linda, thank you. Couldn't find you before this. Okay, there must have been something wrong on the first one. Good. I'm glad I changed that. Okay, so shocker, no. I can't get too far into this thing before I'm even like stopping and saying something here. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. First, you're seeing these shifts in Acts. Remember, Acts is about 30 years long. So there's this little who's in the hot seat and who's in like the front driver's seat of what's going on in this storyline of the book of Acts. Now, remember, this is not exhaustive. This is just Luke's account of the what was happening with the early church. And Luke, you're going to start seeing, he's going to start grafting himself into the narrative. Like you're going to start seeing a shift where it's like, we went here, we went there. Why? Because he's with them now. Okay. But Paul, okay, shocker, Peter, then James. Now we had Barnabas kind of in the lead. Now Paul. So we see this shift of who's giving leadership to the Gentile ministry. It's important. It's not about the ministry that's happening. John Mark went back to Jerusalem, where James is kind of starting to give leadership there, right? But here's something that's interesting. It used to be Barnabas and Saul, Barnabas and Saul, Barnabas and Saul. Now it's Paul and his companions. Okay, there's this shift here. Now, I just want to say this leadership lesson very quickly, that don't fear when others outrun you. Okay, don't be. I'm looking. Even at some of the people that I see in this chat every week, and the things that you're doing, like wow, they're just incredible. And some would say, "Oh, Craig, you've inspired me to." Well, wow, I'm not doing what you're doing. Like, don't be afraid if people outrun you. Okay, your role is to mentor people. Okay, not hold them back. Mentor them, not hold them back from what's going on. Okay, the second thing here is John Mark leaving. It's just this little segue. Oh, John Mark went back to Jerusalem. That's going to be a stink. Okay. That's going to come back and become something that's really a bit of a stir. Okay. In things that are happening. But we're about a few sessions and one sneeze away from that. My apologies. Okay. Few sessions away from that. And is there a bonus? Yes. Oh my goodness. My apologies. Maybe I have to try and edit that out. Oh, I can't do this. Okay, but we'll press pause for that. Let's keep reading. It says they continued their journey from Perga and reached Pisidian Antioch. On the Sabbath day, they went into the synagogue and sat down. After the reading of the law and the prophets, the leaders of the synagogue sent word to them, saying, "Brothers, if you have any word of encouragement for the people, you can speak." Now, first thing I want to point out is here. Notice they sat down. Well, actually, it's just the one thing I want to point out. They sat down, okay? It just seems like this little innocuous thing. But again, the Bible doesn't have innocuous words. Everything matters, right? So they just sat down when they got there. Afterwards, they were invited to speak, okay? And all I want to say is this word to the wise, okay? Sit before you speak, okay? Let them know who you are instead of them asking, "Who are you?" Okay? Let them figure out who you are first before. I had such a respect for somebody who's on this group here. And there were times where this person would say, I really feel God wanting to say this and that. And I would have the deepest respect for the person now because I've spent time with the person and I know their heart. And now I know it's not just someone coming in and wanting to, cause a stink. No, they have a genuine heart for the ministry and what's going on. So that encourages me when I see that stuff happening. Verse 16. Okay, go on with this. Paul stood up and motioned with his hand and said, "Fellow Israelites." Remember, they're in a synagogue. There's my finger. Okay. "And you who fear God," listen, just want to point out, this is Paul's first sermon that's recorded. Okay. So, it's just kind of like I remember the first sermon I ever preached. This is his first sermon. Okay. It's recorded. Verse 17 says this: "The God of this people, Israel, chose our ancestors, made the people prosper during their stay in the land of Egypt, and led them out of it with a mighty arm." Okay, with a mighty arm, literally with an uplifted arm, which I think is a better translation. I can understand why they said mighty, but with an uplifted arm, because I really think that really denotes more of what God did. And for about 40 years, he put up with them in the wilderness. Okay, so other manuscripts that are out there and other translations may say he cared for them. Okay, but literally, what the word is here, what the phrase is that's used is he endured their conduct for about 40 years. So you decide which is the better way to say it. Okay, anyways, verse 19 says this: "And after destroying 7 nations in the land of Canaan," we talked about that before with Job, he gave them their land, not Job, sorry, Joshua, wrong person. It says that after destroying 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he gave them their land as an inheritance. This all took about 450 years. After this, he gave them judges until Samuel the prophet. Okay, he gave them judges. Two things I want to point out. First thing, Samuel ended up being the last judge. One of the books that I'd love to do sometime is the book of Samuel. First Samuel at least, probably both, but that's another era. Okay. But Samuel ended up being the last judge. Judges goes right into First Samuel. The second thing here is that Paul says that God gave them judges. Okay. Let me just be very clear here. Getting a judge is not a good thing. Okay. The book of Judges, great. Yeah. But that's not a good thing because the judges were not good signs of Israel's spiritual health. Remember, they were a theocracy. They were governed by God. So whenever a judge had to come in, really, it was whenever a deliverer, that's the other word that's used for it, deliverer came, okay? So they only came about when the people of Israel were in trouble, okay? And so another word to the wise here is try to live your life so that God doesn't have to bring a deliverer or a judge into your life to bail you out, okay? Let's just keep going. Good. All right. Then they asked for a king, in verse 21 it says, and God gave them Saul, the son of Kish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin for 40 years. Now, something Luke doesn't mention here, which doesn't really matter that much, but let me just throw this in there because it's going to matter, in my opinion, is that if you read the story of 1 Samuel, or the book of 1 Samuel, you'll note that the reason why Saul came around is because the people wanted a king, okay? Saul was the king, you'll see where we're going, the king of the people's heart, okay? Let's keep going. Verse 22, after removing him, he raised up, wait for it, David, wait for that phrase, raised up David as their king and testified about him, I have found David, the son of Jesse, to be a man after my own heart, okay, who will carry out all of my will. So just note that I want to note something here, okay, that there's different faith traditions different faith traditions have different views about this whole thing, about Israel and God and election and Christianity and whether, we have a choice in it or not. Does God go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then you are going to become a Christian, right? Like, how does that work? So there's one faith tradition in the Protestant church called the Reformed view. Okay, so you'll see that in Christian Reformed church if you were raised that way. Lutheran, Presbyterian, many Baptist churches, and that their view is that by God choosing Israel, okay, they would then serve his plan. He moves the pieces. So by choosing Israel, then he is kind of like their pawns, so to speak, on a chessboard of just like, okay, well, then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you to do this and get you to do that and get you to this. And so we serve God's purpose. Okay. He predestined these things. Okay. There's the other view that is called free will. Okay. Which is, you'd have this Reformed view or what's called Calvinism. Sometimes you may have heard it as Calvinism. Then you've got this free will, which is called Arminianism. Okay. I don't have the time. Maybe sometime I'll sing you the beautiful song, Jesus Loves Me More Than You. But anyways, but there's the Arminian view. That's like Pentecostal, Methodist, Church of Nazarene, Church of God. So there's different views there. Okay. That is that by God choosing Israel, he would then work through their choices. Okay. His plan of foreknowledge, and we've talked about that, and it's a really easy answer. Put in the comment section if you want me to discuss it with you, but a really easy answer. But like I have I've simplified my view as to the whole idea of how is it that God knew things ahead of time, and that we can talk about that. But just ask me that question. I don't have time right now to talk about it. But here he works through our choices, okay? And so his plan is based on knowing other people's moves. He knows what we're going to do. So, but we as humans then contribute to his purpose, okay? It's like he set this out with knowledge that right now I would choose to come on. I would choose to run this video twice because I chose to do it because it wasn't working, and I think there's still some struggles with it. But at the same time, he knew that I would say that, right? So all of these things are based on God's knowledge of what we will do. But that is because I don't have time. Okay. All right. Verse 23. From this man's descendants, as he promised, God brought to Israel. I'm going to back up. This is bugging me. This is what happens when you're live. Okay. You can't edit. If you are wanting to understand that, look in the comment section. After I'm done, I'm going to come to this point, and right where I'm talking right now, look for my comment, because I'm going to put something there about explaining how it is that God understands that, or my feeling on that, my view. Verse 23 says this: from man's descendants, as he promised, God brought to Israel the Savior Jesus. Before his coming to public attention, God had previously proclaimed a baptism of repentance to all of the people of Israel. Now, as John was completing his mission, he said, this is John the Baptist, he said, "Who do you think I am? I am not the one." Remember, this is Paul's sermon. I've had so many little breaks in this, but this is Paul's sermon, okay? "Who do you think I am? I am not the one. The one is coming after me, okay? And I am not worthy to untie the sandals on his feet," okay? Now, understand this. Paul was not around for that. So I love the fact that Paul is preaching something about what happened with John the Baptist when he wasn't around, which means somebody told him about that, okay? And he says in verse 26, "Brothers and sisters, children of Abraham's race, and those among you who fear God." It is to catch the word, us, okay, that the word of this salvation has been sent, okay? So next week, just so you understand, there's going to be a verse in verse 47, where he's going to use the term light to the Gentiles. Okay, a light to the Gentiles. So Paul is setting this up. Okay, that salvation's message was showing that Jesus is coming, no longer made Israel as the sole recipient of God's grace and God's mercy. But to all. Okay, to all. So this will become Paul's main objective for the rest of the book, as we're seeing this opening up of God's grace, not only to the Israelites, but to everybody. Okay, verse 27 says this: "Since the residents of Jerusalem and their rulers did not recognize him or the sayings of the prophets that are read every Sabbath, they have fulfilled the word." I'm going to read this again. Sorry, my mind's just gone. "Since the residents of Jerusalem and their rulers did not recognize him or the sayings of the prophets that are read every Sabbath, they have fulfilled the words by condemning him. Though they found no grounds." Again, this is God's just working with their choices. "Though they found no grounds for the death sentence, they asked Pilate to have him killed. When they had carried out all that had been written about him, they took him down from the tree," and I have to find what page I'm on because I messed up all this. There we go. Okay. "And put him in a tomb." Okay. Sorry. "Put him in a tomb. But God raised him from the dead. And he appeared for many days to those who came up with him from Galilee to Jerusalem, who are now his witnesses to the people. And we ourselves proclaim to you the good news of the promise that was made to our ancestors. God has fulfilled this for us, their children, by raising up Jesus, as it is written in the second Psalm, 'You are my son. Today I have become your father.'" Okay, so I want to try and reduce this to as much as possible, because this is a lot he's talking about. I'm doing things in big chunks here. So remember in verse 22, okay, he says, the raising up of David. Okay, so now we see in the last verse, by raising up Jesus. Okay, the same word is being used here. Okay, anestesin. Okay, anestesin is the raising up. And so we see first for David, now we see for Jesus. Okay, and so what Paul is doing is he's connecting the appointment of David, the man after his own heart, to set up for the appointment of the lineage of David, Jesus. Okay, that Jesus is the true fulfillment of David's kingship. So David was made king because he was a man after God's own heart. Now you have Jesus, who is the reigning king as Messiah, as God's own heart. See? Okay, you put this together. Verse 34 says this. As to his raising him from the dead, never to return to decay, he has spoken in this way, I will give you the holy and sure promise of David. So he's quoting passages in the Old Testament, which would be the only testament that they have at that time. It says, therefore, he also says in another passage, you will not let your Holy One see decay. For David, after serving God's purpose in his own generation, okay? I wish I had time on that. I don't. Okay. You only have your own generation. Are you serving God's purposes in your generation? Okay. I got to move on. So after serving God's purpose in his own generation, fell asleep, was buried with his fathers, and decayed. But the one God raised up, again, same word, did not decay. So you have the raising up of David, you got the raising up of Jesus, then you've got the raising up of Jesus again, okay, after his death. Therefore, let it be known to you, brothers and sisters, that through this man, forgiveness of sins is being proclaimed to you. Everyone who believes is, catch this, justified through him from everything that you could not be justified from through the law of Moses. I have to read this again. This is important here because this verse, believe it or not, is the reason for most of the New Testament. Okay. Everyone who believes is justified through him from everything that you could not be justified from through the law of Moses. Okay. The birth of this phrase of being justified by our faith. Justified by our faith. Remember in verse 20 that God gave judges, okay? Deliverers. That's the other way you can translate the word. Deliverers. Paul is saying this. All who believe become delivered. All who believe in Jesus become liberated. All who believe in Jesus become justified. Okay, and this is going to become the main theology of Paul. You're going to read this through certainly Romans and Galatians, but really you're going to see this throughout the rest of his writings. This idea that he is just trying to pound it down because you've got and someone would say like, why is he getting on this one horse? Because the Israelites believed that they were justified by their lineage. They were justified by their DNA. And no, it was not. That's not how they were justified. They were justified by fulfilling the law, which they couldn't do. So now you've got Christ who fulfilled the law. Therefore, we now are justified by our faith in him. Okay. Much of the New Testament teaching, you're going to see this. So in essence, though, what I'm trying to get at, or what Paul's trying to get at, I believe, is that the law could not justify the people. Just like today, if you're speeding and you get pulled over, what do you got? He's got a radar on you. You were going 20 over. What are you going to say? It's wrong by 20 kilometers. If you're wrong by 1 kilometer, if you're over by 1 kilometer, you're still breaking the law, okay? So the law couldn't justify the people. The law really was just the anvil over people's heads, and they just had to stay outside of that, okay? But the truth is that people weren't and couldn't really on their own because of the sinful nature here. So God needed to therefore raise up deliverers for Israel, then kings, because they wanted kings instead of deliverers, but all of them couldn't do it either. So he raised up a king who would do it once and for all, and that was Christ, once for all. And there's different views on this idea of justification. Okay, big word for before 7 a.m. for us in BC. But you've got this justified by what? What are we justified by? So you have this Protestant view, which maybe I'll start with the Catholic view. The Catholic view, which is that grace, okay, is through faith, but, okay, not just by faith, but also the need to follow the sacraments, which, i.e. works. Okay, so what you hear is works, okay, it's following through. There are things to do to keep in God's grace, okay, that's the Catholic view here, okay. You've got this the Protestant view, which we were protesting, this is one of the key things we were protesting, sola fide, just faith alone. Okay, so and I taught about that in a series called Our Essentials. That's on the First Half site. But that through Jesus, everyone who believes is justified from everything the law of Moses could not accomplish. All the things that we could not, everything that we'd fall prey to. Okay. So the law basically here is that the law could not keep us safe. So we need to keep the law with the help of grace. Okay. That's how we carry through that. We live our lives with the help of God's grace. Okay. That's really where this comes into a lot of heavy stuff. Like for a first sermon, man, he was really packing the punches on this one, right? Okay. Verse 40 says this: so beware that what is said in the prophets does not happen to you. Look, you scoffers, marvel and vanish away, because I am doing a work in your days, a work that you will never believe, even if someone were to explain it to you. So Paul is going back to Habakkuk, however you want to say it, Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 5. And he's using this passage here. I'll give you the Craig McKibben version of that, from the Craig McKibben Bible, the Gist Bible. Don't miss the boat like the people before you. Don't miss it. It's right in plain view. Do not miss what is happening here, where Jesus is now the fulfillment. Remember, he's talking to all you Israelites, as well as you God-fearing people who are in that group. Okay, so here, okay. So some lasting thoughts here, just to bring this to a close. First thing, the story of Jesus fulfills the Old Testament story. It doesn't forget it. Okay, it abolishes it. Jesus abolished the law because he becomes the law of grace, but it doesn't forget it. Okay, it's still very much aligned to the Old Testament. So if you're going to read the Bible, don't just read the last 29 books. Okay, no, 27 books, right? You got to read it all. 39 books in the Old Testament. It all is one thing. 2, God's plan is for all people. Okay, it's not just for select group. It's for all people. And remember this, and we're going to get through this. This is going to come out pretty heavy in the next couple weeks. That the idea that Paul is trying to drill home is you're not the end of the line. We talked about that last time with the Christian caboose thing. But he's saying, no, there are people who still need to know about Jesus. And that's why Jesus came, to open up heaven to them. And so I just want to throw this out there to you, as I'm not really even done yet, but who are your Gentiles? This is something I wrote down when I was studying this. I was like, who are my Gentiles? Who are the ones that I'm just like going by every single day and not really giving them the understanding that God loves them? So maybe this is going to be a conviction thing for you too. One person's coming to my mind right now. And there are some others that just, I need to make sure I look at that differently, my relationship with them differently. Third thing, that salvation is from an act of surrender to God, not sweat. We're going to talk about this as we go through this. I know the question in this is, can something truly be free? No, freedom comes with a cost. And so Jesus took on the cost, but then is there really freedom just for us to do whatever we want now? That's where I have to read Paul I think it's like Romans 13 or 14. But this idea here that is there really a freedom that comes from that? Okay. Anyways, next week, as it is after 7 bells, I apologize. Next week, Paul is continuing his message. We couldn't do it all in one shot. But he reveals the secret doorway to God. Okay. Next week, he's going to show where there's the side entrance, where a lot of people don't know about that, and that the secret doorway to God. But as always, I love to end with some tidbit of wisdom and that. But I just wanted to share with you that coming back from Hawaii, we had I was speaking on Sunday at a church, and I literally got to the church. There were some delays with the plane. We did a red eye and we landed in Vancouver. And I got to the church with 20 minutes left before the service started. And thankfully, they were able to make up 20 minutes. So literally, I would have got to the church right when it started. But when we were at the carousel, it was just interesting. There was this man who was, the carousel had started, and the man just, boom, just fell over and fainted right there, just fell over and fainted. We just kind of paid attention to it, but noticed that he got better. He's okay because he came around slowly. All right, that was probably not one of my best ones. All right, anyways, God bless you guys. We'll see you next time when we get together. Till then, go in peace. God bless.